What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the stream, and today we have Season 2 of Moneyball with the Colorado Rockies. You'll see already we are not very good whatsoever. We are the 29th ranked team in baseball heading into this season. Terrible hitting, terrible pitching, terrible defense. Yay! Let us first start by recapping this offseason. It was a pretty active one, and I kicked it off by basically setting off a nuclear bomb to the entire roster. I swear I've never cut so many players in my MLB The Show career. Our roster got all the way down to 55 players, which is definitely a record low for me. There was so much underwhelming talent, we just needed to rebuild from the ground up. After cleaning house with some cuts, we then got active in the trade market. We made a total of 3 deals, all of them aimed to move off of MLB talent that is either eating up unnecessary salary or guys that we just don't think fit our vision. First trade was to send starting pitcher Kyle Freeland away to Texas. The Rangers needed some help in their rotation, and Freeland actually had himself a solid season last year. We also sent away relief pitcher Jake Bird, who can help out the Texas bullpen a bit. In return, we brought in a power-hitting third baseman in Josh Jung. Jung is a former top prospect for the Rangers, but his MLB returns have been a bit of a mixed bag. We're hoping he taps into his power consistently and can provide some additional oomph in the middle of our lineup, alongside Manzardo as we try to build up this roster. Our second trade was to send away our starting shortstop Ezequiel Tovar. While I love his defense and he's on a very affordable long-term contract, Tovar is too much of an enigma at the plate due to his lack of discipline. These concerns showed up pretty loudly last season, which led to this move kind of being put into motion. Fortunately, the Braves had an even bigger need at the shortstop position, and even though his offense isn't the greatest, his defense will have an immense value for them. We also added in relief pitcher Jimmy Herget for this deal, just as I had predicted at the end of the last episode. A really strong year from him allowed us to parlay him into some unexpected value. Coming back to us will be the young catcher Drake Baldwin. The lefty is already broken into the majors and provides a nice combination of bat and good defense behind the plate. He's got a really great approach at the dish, so I have some high hopes for him. He's kind of the opposite of Tovar in that right. We didn't stop there either, as we'll also be grabbing the right fielder Jared Kelenic for a little additional value. I love what Kelenic can do in a platoon role against righties, so the thought process here was let him do some things on the strong side of the platoon and then bring in a couple of lefty smashers. And that's exactly what we did in free agency, which I'll get to shortly. The final deal was a simple 1-for-1 swap with the Miami Marlins. The outfield position for them is a big weakness in their organization, so they were pretty quick to pull the trigger when we offered up Brenton Doyle. And with their plethora of young pitching depth, a deal with them just kind of made sense as we bring in starting pitcher Max Meyer. He's kind of a guy who epitomizes what we were looking for in a pitcher. Don't care too much about his hits per nine. He's got some solid Ks per nine and base on balls per nine offerings. Now at free agency, we didn't just scrape the bottom of the bargain bin. One of our early targets was center fielder Trent Grisham. We have to fill a void left by Brenton Doyle in center field, and Grisham should be able to deliver a good amount of defense in return. He also offers a bit of power as well. One area where we could get a little bit of improvements in Grisham is his plate discipline, which again is one of the pillars we are trying to focus on. We're going to bring him in on a 2-year, $30 million contract. Our other top target was starting pitcher Andrew Heaney. We wanted a veteran to come in and hopefully stabilize the rotation a bit more. Him being a lefty was an added bonus as well. I'd love it if he could put together a good campaign for us because he could be a very strong trade candidate come the deadline. 1 year, $15 million were his terms. After those two, things got a little lower key, but we still stayed pretty active in the market. We needed some bullpen help, so the veteran righty Luke Weaver should provide things good for us in the bullpen and also being a good trade candidate. We also went out and grabbed a lefty in Sean Newcomb. He's kind of been an enigma mixed with a schizophrenic in his career, so we'll see which version of him we get. For hitters, we needed someone who could take over the shortstop role for us with Tovar being gone. Now, we kind of went about in a weird way filling that void, but I'm a fan of Dylan Moore and what he brings to the table. He was initially listed at third base, but I moved him to shortstop, which he has as a secondary position. He's a very solid defender who's won a Gold Glove in the past. He also takes his walks in bunches and hits for some pretty good power. Pretty much an exact match for our prototypical player in this rebuild. At the very least, I think he could be a solid platoon option, but I see some good upside for him in an everyday role as well. So that'll wrap up our post-arbitration free agent signings. It was then time to dive into the non-tender market to see what we could find. And there we found two guys that I thought were pretty intriguing. The first was third baseman Andrew Monasterio. Now, I envisioned him as possibly starting at second base, not third, but we'll see how things pan out during the season. He's got an intriguing profile, albeit he could hit for some more power. Nonetheless, not a terrible option for a rebuilding squad on a budget. The second guy we targeted was left fielder Alex Call, who got let go by the Washington Nationals. Like I said earlier, I was scouring the market for some lefty smashers to platoon with Kelenic, and I think Call could be a pretty good option. He's got some solid batting numbers against lefties, and what's even better is he's got some good defense and speed to boot. I was pretty happy to land him. And finally, we'll finish this offseason recap with a Rule 5 draft pick. I don't usually make these, but I was looking for someone to take a second base role, and this kid Peyton Elis was just sitting out there. Looks like a solid lefty bat, so maybe there's a platoon potential with Monasterio. We'll find that out in due time. So this is what our lineup will look like against righties. Against lefties, we'll make a simple swap of Call in for Kelenic. The rotation to bullpen will look like this. Chase Dollander breaks camp with the big league squad, and he'll be in the fourth slot of the rotation. Down on the farm, here's some hitting prospects we'll be keeping an eye on. Warming Bernabel will look to build on his success from last year now that he's in AAA. Jordan Beck will be a name to monitor. If he gets off to a hot start, we might see him in the major league lineup by summertime. Cole Carrig is a guy I've been intrigued by since we started. The 23-year-old touts some high-end defense and a developing bat. The bat will be his biggest question mark this season. Our second-round pick from last season, Jack Hamill, will have a prominent spot in the Hartford lineup. Cam Collier gets an opportunity to have a full season of development with us. Charlie Condon got a taste of AA ball last year, but now he gets a full meal. Key developmental year for the 22-year-old. We're being a little aggressive, pushing Robert Callis into AA with only 58 overall, but I'm interested to see what he's got to offer. As far as pitching prospects, our deadline acquisition from last year, Chase Petty, is pushing for a rotation spot on the big league squad. Jody Vargas and Gabriel Hughes both have some sneaky upside, but have some work to do at AAA before they get the call to the majors. Big development year for both of them. Luis Patino is well past prospect status, but we picked him up off the non-tender market. He's still got some decent potential, though, so an impact in the bullpen isn't out of the question. Brody Brecht has a solid opportunity to build on some good development from last year. Norm Patterson will take a very similar developmental path that Brecht took last season, working in the long relief role with some starts here and there. Wellington Herrera has a key season on the horizon. Gonna need to hit those afterburners after his development last year kind of stagnated, and he's only 59 overall at age 21. Hopefully he sees some more growth. One last thing to check on before we get started is our injury list. Spring training was a little rough as we lost both Adael Amador and Ryan Feltner to 1 to 2 month injuries. Lost development for Amador and a lost rotation help with Feltner. Now we are into May, and actually the team is holding its own so far. Sitting at 29 and 29 and only 5 games back in the West, we certainly look much improved with the stick at a 233, 304, 417 team slash line. The ERA took a little bit of a step back, though, sitting at 427. Andrew Monasterio has been top dog, an outstanding ISO of 276, racking up 16.7 batting runs and already 2.1 WAR. A definite surprise this season. Drake Baldwin has also been really solid. Obviously, we'd see a little bit more power out of him, but it's hard to argue with his 8.4 batting runs. Really nice production out of our backstop. When we signed him, we thought Dylan Moore was the prototypical guy we'd look for, and he's been exactly that. Lower average, but high walk rate and ISO, along with some good defense. Like how he started the year. Zach Veen getting his first extended taste of the bigs here this year. Below average walk and strikeout rates and not enough power, but strong enough defense is keeping his WAR afloat for now, so not too bad. Trent Grisham, on the other hand, has been a disappointment. His walk rate has slipped significantly and his power is non-existent. Minus 4.5 batting runs is not what we want in the bat when we're paying $15 million. Hunter Goodman has some nasty pop in his bat. A 234 ISO is strong for a backup backstop. Alex Call hasn't quite been what we hoped for on the weak side of the platoon and only 92 at-bats. Josh Jung continues to be a mixed bag. Power numbers are solid at a 193 ISO, but he's still not taking enough walks, and he's barely in the positives for WAR. Jury is still out on Peyton Ellis with only 72 at-bats to his name. Michael Toglia hasn't been too bad. I'll look past the negative WAR for now because I like where his walk rate is at, and his ISO is a beautiful 230. If he can cut down the Ks a bit, I think he'll start to come full circle at the plate. Kyle Manzardo has taken a step back this year. The strikeout and walk rates aren't in too bad of spots, and neither is the power, so it looks like maybe it's just more bad luck than anything else. We'll stay the course with him. And finally, can't complain too much with Jared Kelenich's production. A 259 ISO and a walk rate of 9.3% is right on par with what we like. For pitchers, welcome to the big leagues, Mr. Dollander. Killing it already by racking up a 1.7 WAR and a pretty 3.10 FIP. Absolutely no complaints. Max Meyer also looks pretty good. I'd like to see those strikeout numbers bump a bit, but everything else is in pretty good shape. Andrew Heaney hasn't been exactly what we'd hoped for, a 4.47 FIP and some poor strikeout numbers. That makes us 0 for 2 on $15 million men. Luke Weaver has been a steady bullpen arm, though, with a 3.89 FIP and 3.21 component ERA, both looking mighty, mighty fine. Lucas Gilbreth is continuing his career resurgence. Big-time strikeout rate is making his advanced numbers look very good. First glance, Victor Vodnik looks to be struggling mightily with an ERA in the 6s and a whip of 1.5, but he sports a pristine FIP of 3.29, so I think long-term we'll see him settle in nicely. Gus Varland's been a little bit of a surprise out of the bullpen, sneaky good, so I'll keep monitoring him closely. Anthony Molina looks brutal with his ERA almost 11, but his FIP's only 3.33, so yeah, that's intriguing. Maybe he's due for a breakout soon? Tanner Gordon hasn't been bad, but definitely leaves a lot to be desired. Ryan Feltner came off the IL and has gotten slapped around in his first few starts, so he's still working on settling in. Evan Justice is filling in for the injured Sean Newcomb, and he's looked really good outside of a slightly bloated home runs per 9 number. The aforementioned Newcomb is still on the shelf for another month or so, but his first 11 innings on the bump this year, he was fantastic. Hopefully he keeps shoving once he's back from injury and fetches some good trade value at the deadline. Antonio Senzatella continues to be an overpriced paperweight on the mound that I simply can't get rid of. And Jaden Hill could be a good reliever if he simply stopped giving up tanks. A 2.45 home runs per 9 is brutally bad. On the farm, Sterling Thompson was off to a strong start in AAA before his shin injury sidelined him for 2 months. Tough break for the 24-year-old looking to make an impact. Warming Bernabel also picked up a pretty significant ankle injury, so it's been a tough year for injuries for our AAA hitters. Jordan Beck won't be finding his way to Denver anytime soon. Very, very bad start to his season, almost -2 in WAR thanks to a terrible performance at the dish. Jordy Vargas is the leader on the bump for the Isotopes, 3.14 FIP, doing a great job limiting walks and keeping the ball inside the yard. Chase Petty's been alright, but not great. I don't know if a call-up is in the cards for him this season. He may need a full year of development in AAA, but we'll keep a close eye on him. For the Yard Goats, hitting has not been their forte. Some pretty ugly numbers down here in AA, so avert your eyes. Robert Calez has been okay. I'd say more or less holding his own, so can't complain too much. Jack Hamill has been disappointing. He's actually lost overall to this juncture, which is really weird for an 18-year-old in this game. Just a major lack of power, which comes very unexpectedly. This is a little concerning. Cam Collier, one of the main returns in our trade with the Reds last year, is also struggling for a second straight year at AA. Big-time power outage and too many strikeouts has led to a -1.1 WAR. Charlie Condon is a very similar story, but even less power and walks. The former top 5 pick has not lived up to the hype. we're going to have to kick our development team into overdrive to avoid another high draft pick bust. Fortunately, the pitching has been much better for our AA squad. Eugenior Herrera has been the leader in WAR for the staff. Not a bad season for the 22-year-old out of Venezuela. Norm Patterson, our second-round pick from a year ago, has been putting together a nice campaign for himself as well. Now, the strikeout numbers are quite low, under 6.5 per 9, but he's shown some good growth to date and is settling in nicely to start his pro career. Robert Iwamura has been flashing some upside early on this season. The 18-year-old deep potential reliever turned starter is striking out over a batter per inning thus far. Juan Chavis has also impressed, so we're getting a good amount of production out of our pitching selections from last year's draft class. Really weird season for Brody Brecht. The strikeout numbers are abysmal and so are the walk numbers, but he's been outstanding at keeping the ball in the yard, which is holding his FIP down and in a halfway decent spot. Wellington Herrera is yet another guy whose strikeout numbers have been disappointing on the year. Not sure what our farm director is doing, but he may be hurting our development of guys a bit. Now we head to the draft. We'll have the third pick this season, and I'm really hoping things go a little better than last year, where we were severely let down by our scouts. I really like this shortstop, Johnny Montes. He's the number 1 ranked player, so hopefully we catch a break and he falls to us. I'm also a big fan of Felix Beltran, the righty out of Cuba. He flew up our draft board and looks like he could have some really high-end potential. Kicking off this draft will be the Detroit Tigers, and they'll grab the college bat, third baseman Tom Park. Not a bad pick for them, looking at some of his numbers there. Also leaves us a shot at our top 2 guys. Pick number 2 will go to the Washington Nationals, and they won't waste any time. Johnny Montes will be headed to DC. The top player on our board will not be available for us. Taking another look at the top 2 picks, Park looks like a real solid hitter, while Montes looks like an ace defender with some good pop. Both strong picks in my opinion. Now with us on the clock, I've started to second guess my interest in Beltran. I've been burned before taking guys who shoot up draft boards like this into the top 5, so it's made me a bit wary. That led me to the lefty out of Puerto Rico, Jude Rivas. He looks much more MLB ready with just a tad bit less potential. Him being a lefty is a nice added bonus, so when all is said and done, we'll go ahead and pull the trigger. We'll see if it ends up being the right decision. And it seems like we weren't the only ones with concerns about Beltran. He ends up dropping all the way to pick 35, just 2 picks before our selection at 37. Interesting. Like I've said before, competitive balance rounds are good spots to take some big swings. And we'll take one here with the 18-year-old outfielder, Herb Ricker. Very tantalizing power discipline combo, just a little risky with a wide range of possible outcomes. No chance to rest as we are literally right back on the clock for pick 38. We'll grab another teenage outfielder in Paul Schnell. Again, some pretty wide range of outcomes here, but this is a kid with some great speed who puts the ball in play and takes his walks. That's a combo that can provide a good floor, so a shot on his upside is reasonable. After taking risks with the previous 2 picks, now we'll go with a stable floor selection of college second baseman Sammy Marquez. Certainly not the type of power we look for, but he offers some solid discipline along with some good defense and speed. Now in the 4th round, only 2 guys left on our scouting board. We'll go ahead and take Freddie Velasmiel. I actually like his potential here, just questions about his starting overall with him already being 21 years old. Round 5 comes and goes very quickly as one of the scouted players we had on our board in round 4 is also still available here, so why not grab him as well? And that brings us to the final round and time for my prototypical blind shot on an 18-year-old reliever. That honor will go to Ronald Infante this season. Wide range of both potentials and starting overalls. A true shot in the dark if I've ever seen one. So that'll wrap up draft class number 2. Definitely took some chances in this one, but I feel like that's what we need to do if we want to be successful in this type of rebuild. Take chances and pray to God they work out. Skipping out a couple weeks, we are at the trade deadline. Our team has actually continued to hold its own, sitting at a strong 53-52 record. 6 games back in the NL West, which seems a little weaker than usual this year. We are hanging in there, in the wild card race as well, but we're not going to fool ourselves into thinking we've got a legit shot at making noise. We have outperformed expectations, but the regression monster is likely to hit us before long, and I don't want to get caught with my pants down. With that being said, let's take a little look at some names that could be on the move. Andrew Heaney has settled in with a 4.20 ERA, nice, and a 1.6 WAR. He can provide a good fifth starter option for some teams, especially those looking for a lefty. Luke Weaver has been a good investment, one of the better relievers on the open market. Lucas Gilbreth had been performing at a high level, but he's been very rough of late, which has killed his value a bit. Sean Newcomb returned from injury and the numbers look very ugly, but all of that damage came in 2 outings, which totaled a 0.2 innings pitched and 8 earned runs. So other than that, he's continued to be pretty solid, so I think we can get some value for him at this deadline. Andrew Monasterio has continued his incredible season. His power numbers have started to slip in recent weeks, but his WAR is almost at 3 and the batting runs looks really solid. I don't think I'll rush to trade him quite yet. He shouldn't be terribly expensive to retain after this year, so why not see if he can build on his success? Dylan Moore has been beautiful. I said earlier he epitomizes what we were looking for in a player. I do not care about his average, as his on-base percentage is solid thanks to a walk rate of nearly 14%. My God. Power has been impressive as the ISO is almost at 200. 1.8 WAR with some solid value defensively and some speed to boot. He'll definitely be on the move. Trent Grisham, however, has not been what we paid for. His walk rate and power have improved a bit, but still down from previous years. Now the WAR still looks decent thanks to his defense, but I'm not sure his value is in a great spot right now. We've got another year on his contract, so we'll hang on to him and hope he peaks next season. So now it's time for the actual deals. And we'll be making only one technical trade this season, albeit in 2 parts. Part 1 will be with the Toronto Blue Jays, where we'll be bringing in the Jaguar, Kevin Alcantara. He's been getting some PT in the majors, but not an everyday player quite yet. Returns have been a bit underwhelming for his potential, though, so the Jays aren't too afraid to move on from him, especially when they have some needs on the pitching front. Andrew Heaney should give them a good rotation boost, while Sean Newcomb gives them a solid lefty to help out in their pen. We'll also be adding in Dylan Moore to get this deal over the top. So this is quite a bit to give up for Alcantara, but he's not the final target. We'll immediately shift our focus to the Mets and one of their top prospects in Jet Williams. Now Williams is blocked at short by superstar Francisco Lindor. He's also blocked at both third base and second base by Mark Vientos and Jeff McNeil, respectively. The Mets also have Brett Baty and Luis Angel Acuna at those 2 positions for depth. So this allows them to limit the damage of giving up the 85 potential shortstop. They could, however, use some young upside in the outfield, so that's where Alcantara comes in. And to finalize this deal, we'll be adding in Luke Weaver to help the Mets shore up their pen. And there you have it. Very quick and easy deadline. Much simpler than I'm used to, but that's just kind of how the cards fell this time around. Jet Williams is the only name we bring in, but he's a good one who could be a cornerstone for us if things break right. Before we move on, it's time to start extending some of our key pieces. Max Meyer has been very good for us this year after coming over from the Marlins in the Bretton Doyle trade. Starters can get expensive on the open market, and a guy like Meyer could fetch somewhere around $17 million per year once all is said and done. So a $13 million per year extension will save us a couple million on the back end of his deal, and I'll take that savings in an instant. I'm also going to take a chance here and extend Jet Williams. I have a good feeling about this kid and think he could be really, really good. $12 million per year may seem like a steep price now, but his projected free agency value is already $19 million, and that could go even higher if he's as good as I think he will be. He's also projected to make some good money in his arbitration years, so the savings on him could be plentiful in only a couple of seasons. We'll also be extending Drake Baldwin, another offseason acquisition. He has been a very strong backstop after finally getting a full-time role for the first time in his career. Good catchers are both hard to find and not incredibly cheap. Only about a $3 to $5 million savings compared to his projected open market value, but every little bit helps. Checking out our draft picks, this is a little better than last year. Our top 5 pick looks the part with an incredible starting overall of 83. Now I'll make some adjustments to that as usual, so he'll be a 69 to start, which will add 2 potential and give him an 88 for that. Not disappointed at all in that. However, there's some drop off from there. Ricker will be a 65 overall with 75 potential, very similar to Hamill from last year's draft class, and almost in an identical spot as well. Schnell has some decent potential, but very far away from the majors with a 53 overall. Sammy Marquez is rock solid though. 67 overall with 78 potential is exactly the floor I was hoping to see. Pretty pleased with his outcome. Velasquez I'm actually okay with. I was worried about his starting overall, but at 58, it's not too bad and he's bordering on B potential. Carlos Aguilar will be a 69 overall with 74 potential. Also not bad for a 5th rounder. And our blind reliever shot didn't work out this year, but should at least give us some solid depth in our system. Checking out some other picks around the league, Tom Park was well worth number 1 overall. Johnny Montez also looks like the part of a top 2 pick. Then there's Felix Beltran, who was our other consideration at 3. Maybe some slight buyer's remorse taking Rivas over him, but they're honestly very, very similar in terms of their outcomes. Beltran just a tad more upside. Overall, can't say I'm too disappointed with our top pick this year. It is now the end of the minor league seasons. The Isotopes finished under 500 and well out of the playoff race, while the Yard Goats were a little more respectable at 71 and 67, but they'll also be missing the playoffs. Cole Carrick looked very good this year, racking up 2.5 in WAR. Pretty solid across the board at the plate and obviously some strong defense. He's well on our radar for an outfield slot with a big league club next season. Drew Romo continues to be a non-existent power threat. I'd like to move on from him, but just don't think he has any real value, so we'll probably just keep him for now. Sterling Thompson looked very good before his injury, but after that, he was a little underwhelming at the plate. Time is running out for the 24-year-old to make an impact in the organization. Jordan Beck can't hack it, I don't think. So another poor season overall stemmed by underachievement at the plate. He still has options left, so I don't think we'll dump him just yet, but I don't see any real value for him. Warren McBurnabell is another guy whose injury had a lasting effect. Not the greatest numbers for the third baseman. Next year might be his final shot to prove himself in the organization. Jared Thomas was a top prospect coming into this rebuild, but he has vastly underperformed at the plate. Same could be said for Yanquiel Fernandez, except much, much worse. Minus 4.1 WAR is insane. I don't think I've ever seen a number that bad before, and minus 19 batting runs is even worse. Bad, bad, bad. AA hitters left a lot to be desired, but Cam Collier showed out in the second half, so that's good. He was trending towards a potential decrease, so I'm happy to see him bounce back. Benny Montgomery has locked up his bust status, another developmental failure for our organization. Robert Calez looked overmatched in AA. Perhaps I should have been a bit more patient with pushing him, but there was some solid growth in spots this season, so that's positive at least. Jack Hamill was not good at all. This is pretty shocking considering he has some pretty good batting attributes. To have an 18-year-old gain literally no overall is a massive indictment of our developmental staff. And if you thought Yanquiel Fernandez was bad, good lord, Charlie Condon. Minus 5.3 WAR and minus 30.3 batting runs. Good lord, man. I torched his potential after this because, my God, that was terrible. He's still in the B range because he was a high B potential, but this is simply not okay by any means for a top 5 pick just 2 seasons ago. For pitching, Jordy Vargas had an outstanding season. 4.0 WAR will get him some bumps to his potential. Chase Petty seemingly benefited from a full season of development in AAA. 3.4 WAR nipping at the heels of Vargas. No complaints outside of maybe asking for a bit more in the strikeout department. Gabriel Hughes was decent but not outstanding. He's probably on his last legs in our system next year since he'll be 25 already. Luis Peralta was a nice little relief option for our AAA squad. He's someone I want to monitor for the big league pen next year. In AA, Eugenia Herrera kept shoving after our check-in back in May. A nice 4.0 WAR from him and a nearly sub-3 FIP. Norm Patterson was outstanding and had some major gains to his attributes. I would say he was probably our most successful developmental project this season. Brody Breck picked up things after May and ended up with some strong numbers in development on the year. Robert Iwamura got himself a manual potential bump. The 18-year-old converted starter shoved, and I was really impressed with him. He's only still at a deep potential, but he's caught my eye going forward. Juan Chavis was also super impressive, amassing a 2.0 WAR in a full-time relief role. Are you kidding me? An insane 1.52 FIP. He was just nasty and is immediately on the radar as one of our top relief prospects. Chase Mobley, who we acquired from the Guardians at last year's deadline, also debuted in AA. The 19-year-old showed some decent returns in 60 innings, and he'll look to build on that next season. Finally, Wellington Herrera continues to be a developmental anomaly. He put together a decent season in relief, but only grew about 2 overall. He's struggling to miss bats consistently and giving back some development and based on balls per 9. I'll admit, I'm a little concerned about him. Now at the end of the Major League season, Big League squad will finish up with a 77-85 record and last place in the NL West. Certainly a big improvement from last year's team, and I'm pleased that we held our own even after making some moves at the trade deadline to move some guys away. Andrew Monasterio was our top position player with a 3.1 WAR. He did finish the season on the shelf with a shin injury, and his power did slip much of the second half, but I was fairly impressed by him and actually got some boosts to his potential after the year he had. Drake Baldwin stayed a solid backstop for us. I'd like to see some more power out of him as he goes along in his contract, but I can't complain with some solid returns. Jet Williams quickly rewarded our confidence in him. Finally taking on a full-time role, he quickly stacked up 2.5 WAR with 14.3 batting runs. The 22-year-old shortstop looks to have a bright future in Colorado. Trent Grisham did not have a good season at the plate at all. Walk rate dipped, K rate spiked, and the power was a very big disappointment. Extremely frustrated with him. Alex Call, however, was just what we asked for in a lefty smasher role. 1.7 WAR and only 215 at-bats. Some good power and plate discipline keyed his production. Hunter Goodman was a rock-solid backup catcher. ISO was pushing 300 much of the year, so I like what he was able to give us. Zach Veen got a full-time role this year, but he might be better suited for a platoon role long-term. He did some decent things against righties, and I like what he can do defensively, but just a bit of a reliability with lefties on the bump. Adael Amador found his way back into the major leagues after the deadline. Only got him 80 at-bats, but he raked with a 363 average. I know batting average isn't a thing we concern ourselves with too much, but a number that high can't be overlooked. Jared Kelenic was exactly what we had hoped for. A very good left-handed platoon hitter with some good pop and 9.6 batting runs. Even got himself a little potential bump by the game. Kyle Manzardo, on the other hand, was a tad bit disappointing. Only accumulated 0.4 batting runs, which is not good enough from a first baseman. The walk and strikeout rates weren't in terrible spots though, so maybe it was just a hard luck season for him. Michael Toglia, however, had himself a nice bounce back year. I'd like to see the strikeout rate improve, but other than that, he hit for some really good power and took plenty of walks. Weston Wilson and our Rule 5 draft pick, Peyton Elis, were both underwhelming bench options, so we'll look to move on from both of them. And our worst position player was Josh Jung, a massive disappointment going for negative 1.5 WAR and negative 6.6 batting runs. His ISO took a big tumble after the solid start with no plate discipline or defense to speak of. A very bad combination for a position player. Now don't ask me why, but like a dummy, I forgot to record any of the pitching numbers for our big leaguers. So just to recap a couple of guys for documentation purposes, Max Meyer finished with a 2.2 WAR and a 4.16 FIP. Senzatella had a FIP over 5, so he continues to be a bum that we can't get rid of. Alan Winans was actually a bit of a surprise. In 12 starts after the deadline, he was just under a 1 WAR with a strong FIP of 387. He should be in the rotation discussion next season. Chase Dollander regressed a bit, but overall had a strong rookie campaign, accumulating 2.5 WAR. I like what Ryan Feltner did as well. Only 1.9 WAR, but his FIP and component ERA were 391 and 378 respectively. Very, very solid. In the pen, Gus Varland continued pitching well after May and finished with a 0.8 WAR and 361 FIP. We did get Luis Patino into the majors, and he looked very good with a 381 FIP and almost a sub-3 component ERA. In the setup roles, Jaden Hill was a bit of a mixed bag with a high FIP of 4.88, but a really good component ERA of 305. Lucas Gilbert's drop-off kind of continued as he barely finished with a positive WAR and a FIP above 4. Victor Vodnik finished 40 of 47 on save chances. While his ERA was a bit bloated, his FIP was a solid 355 thanks to almost 12 strikeouts per 9. It looks pretty promising moving forward. Now it's on to the postseason. You see the playoff bracket there has led to this World Series matchup with the Athletics finally making the World Series. Good for them. They'll be taking on one of our trade deadline partners in the New York Mets. Game 1 will go to the Mets, but Game 2 to the Athletics. Now in New York City, we'll get a split of the first 2 games, setting up a critical Game 5 matchup between Shane Bieber and Clay Holmes. Holmes will get the best of Bieber for a second time in this series. That puts the Athletics on the ropes. Game 6 is a battle of 2 tough lefties, and JP Sears throws a gem to force a Game 7. What a series we have here. For all the marbles, it'll be Mitch Spence making his first postseason start. Bold choice. And it'll be against Kodai Senga. And the Mets are world champions. Wow, that was a heck of a series. Checking out the box score, Spence wasn't terrible, but he wasn't great. Bullpen also significantly struggled for the Athletics, and that ended up spelling their downfall. Checking out the awards, Lindor is your World Series MVP. He's also the NL MVP, while Brent Rooker takes home the honors for the AL. Austin Riley and Aaron Judge are your league MVPs, while George Kirby and Logan Webb take home Cy Young honors. Both Chase Dollander and Zach Veen were nominated for NL Rookie of the Year, but the award goes to the talented second base prospect Alex Freeland of the Dodgers instead. No gold gloves for our guys, but Manzardo, Veen, and Grisham all got nominations. Silver Sluggers, Taglia finished behind Ohtani for DH, so that's something intriguing. Nobody else cracked into the top 3, however. And that'll be all she wrote for season number 2. Definite progress was made, but there's clearly still a lot of work left to do. We extended our first couple of core pieces, so the goal from here is to keep acquiring young talent and identifying those guys we think could be critical pieces going forward. But in the meantime, between time, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'm gone. Deuces!